So I guess, I would say about Ben is that one of the reasons I love to have him come read for us, I first became familiar with his work when he published Barrio Bushido, and I had one of my classes read that book, and they loved it. And I loved kind of getting sort of the insight and the connection to what it's like to grow up in the mission, right? And so Ben is the real deal. He grew up in the mission. He went off to the Marines at age 17, fought in combat, came back, and came to City College, right? And at City College, I think he eventually buckled down and started excelling academically and moved on to UC Berkeley, Hastings School of Law, and San Francisco State University, right? So it's an amazing story. And the cherry on the top is that now he's a professor at City College, and he's sharing those experiences, his education, but also his knowledge of the community. So it makes it really, really exciting to have him here, right? And I thank him once again for being here. Ben is going to be reading from his second book tonight, right? So I'm going to read his description of the book and then let him tell you more about it, since it's hot off the press. It's a brand new book. I just ordered it a while ago, and I'm still waiting for it. So I'm looking forward to getting the teaser that's going to get us all buying that book. Oh, and by the way, I should mention, right here is the link for purchasing the book. So if you haven't had a chance to buy it yet, it's right there. Okay. So Pura Neta book summary. So it's set in the San Francisco Mission Barrio from 2012 to 2014. Pura Neta, which means, I didn't know this until Ben explained it in one of his emails, but it means pure truth, explores the creative struggle of homeboys and homegirls fighting against gentrification, police brutality, racism, and economic and educational injustice. Cartoon, a homeboy who had been banished from the barrios 20 years earlier, has returned from his educational and spiritual odyssey. He finds the hood under attack, and it is no longer the gangs, but the monsters of cafes, cheese schools, and microbreweries protected by their own police force that are destroying the native San Franciscans. In order to strategize a meaningful movement, Cartoon visits his old mentor, El Lobo, a barrio shot caller who is now serving a life sentence in San Quentin. Cartoon then recruits the young homeboys to begin implementing amor action in the hood until the police murder a loved one, which ultimately sparks the revolt of the roots. So with that sort of general introduction, I'm going to let Ben speak to it and treat us to an excerpt from the reading. So let's give it up for Ben Boxier. If you want to momentarily unmute, you may, and let's give it up for Ben. All right. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you all for joining us here tonight. And it is my honor, my privilege to speak to you about my new book, Pura Neta, right? And I know that a lot of people may pronounce it like Pura Neta or Pura Neta, right? But it is Pura Neta, right? And just so that you can feel what that is, let me sing it to you, okay? Pura Neta, 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 Pura Neta. Okay, so that is the way It's supposed to be sung, and I hope one day you all will be able to sing that song as well, right? As you read the book, go through the book, absorb the book, right? And what does it mean? Pura Neta is street Spanglish for pure truth. But I want to dig into that before I even get into the book and summarizing and reading from the book, because note there that that is a paradox, because this book is a book of fiction, yet the title is Pure Truth, which is paradoxical, because I know many of you will question, how can a book of fiction be pure truth when it's based on imagination, also known as lies, right? And one of the points that I hope is embedded in the book is that, in fact, imagination is the purest form of truth that we have, right? So, and I write about it in the book, but these words, this language that we use, these are all fleas jumping on the page. They're all spider symbols, right? That's all they are, right? I mean, I got water right here. I'm a little thirsty right now, so I'll drink this water. Now, that is Pura Neta right there, okay? Now I can say water, I can sing water, I can write water in beautiful calligraphy, but even if I do that 1,000,000 times, it will never be an actual thing, right? So one of the premises for calling this Pura Neta is that this is an imagination. It's symbolic, yet at the same time, it, I hope, reaches into that which is human. The most human thing that we have, I would argue, is not language, is not symbols, but feeling. So I hope this book, as you read it, will evoke some feeling in you. And maybe part of the feeling is going to be a little bit of confusion, okay? Because it's a straightforward book, but it's magically real. It's somewhat complex because I think I have written in a genre that has never been used before. And what I did in this book is it's a jambalaya of language, of written form, right? I have philosophy, I have a narrative going on here, and at the same time that is happening, I also have a poetry embedded into the story. So the story is a linear story, and the poetry fits into, for example, the character's mindsets. The poetry fits into the dialogue, so that sometimes the characters are speaking in stanza style poetry, right? So, I challenged myself to do something that I thought was unique, that I hope works, in some way for the audience, the reader, to be entertained and to feel, right? And also, I leave it up to the reader to interpret as well. Because another reason why this book is named Pura Neta is it is a book of fiction, okay? However, many of the stories here are based on truth, on things that actually happened in reality. And part of what I'm doing in this book is I'm urging the reader to go and find out, like if they're confused, well, what is this about? Gentrification? In the year 2014, what is this about this character, Alex Neta? Because that's his name inside of the story, right? What is this about him, right? I don't explain, because this is not a journalistic piece. This is not a historian writing a book, nonfiction book, right? I want the reader to go and then go do research. Wow, this is related to this incident and to these other incidents as well, right? This is related to what happened in the 80s, 90s in the Mission District regarding mass incarceration. How all the homies were demonized and vilified, right? And then, you know, it was justifiable to send them all to prison, right? You know, and so this book covers those historical realities, but leaves it up to the reader to go find out the supposed facts, right? Wherever you can get those from. Okay, so it's my pleasure to introduce this book to you. I'm going to read to you a little bit right now, and I guess I wanted to give you all a choice, right? In what I read. I've got some pages that I can pull from, right? I have some scenes that I can pull from, but so I've got three ideas in mind right now, right? The idea of love, the idea of philosophy, the idea of capitalism. Okay, so I don't know, how can I get your response to this? Who would like to have me read about love? If you could just raise your hand. Okay, all right. Who wants me to read philosophy? Philosophy. Okay, I see a couple of double hands there. Okay, all right. And who would like to see me read about the concept of capitalism? All right. Okay. I think love won out. All right. Okay. Love always wins. Okay. Always in all ways. All amor. All amor. Okay. All right. So I will read a bit about love. And this is love for your fellow human beings. This one is found on page 25. Okay. It's a different type of love. So this is not a romantic type of love. The character, Toro, in chapter 1, page 25, he is questioning what has happened to the neighborhood, right? Cartoon has come back. It's been 20 years. Toro was part of the reason why Cartoon had to leave the barrio. And just a little bit about this story, okay? This book, Pura Neta, is actually, this is Barrio Bushido, my first novel. This book, Pura Neta, is actually part 2 of Barrio Bushido, because at the end of Barrio Bushido, Cartoon gets kicked out of the neighborhood, right? And he doesn't get kicked out as if it's a shameful thing. The big homies, Lobo and Toro, kick him out because they feel he has promise to go do something else. They don't want him going to prison or getting killed. So they tell him, you got to go, man. And he doesn't want to go, but he eventually submits to their desire. And Cartoon looks at this as a mission. I'm going to go, and my mission then is to go get educated, whatever that means, right? And he goes and does that. He's coming back now, and the barrio has changed, right? From 1992 to the year 2012, the Mission District has been transformed, right? And as John discussed in the summary, it is no longer the gangs, but the cheese schools, right? And the police, although the police have always been brutalizing the community, right? You know, but they are actually causing the Latino Chicano population to live in fear, right? And they're being kicked out as well, right? So Toro has been able to stay, right? And he reflects on what the neighborhood means to him and who the root of the neighborhood is. And so this is from the character Toro. He laments. I am a bull, but they don't see me as that majestic animal. They see only a mad dog. To them, all of us are only mad dogs that disgust them. They clear out all the old vatos, the homeless homies, from their tents. Tonight, I wish it would rain. Toro gazed up again at the cloudless heavens. Then I would remember and feel the wise homeless men I used to drink with at Old Union Square, 24th Street, rat-infested Fisherman's Wharf, bearded, stinking, good men, good drinkers of Cisco, Night Train, Mad Dog, 2020, winos. We shared something in common. Streets. Sitting on cement stairs in broad daylight or pitch blackness. We talked about life, passed around a bottle. We didn't care about duties, we cared about life, independence. I left for 4 years, from 87 to 91, went to war, came back, and they were still there. They were no longer the same. We were no longer the same. Time changed us. I was a bullet. They were mad, talking to the sky, shouting at the stars, frustrated at their very own faces. They did not remember me. And it was I who was sad to be forsaken. I envied them, their strength for the streets. When the homeless love you, they also know how to break your heart. You look at them and you know that is me. That is me. Who has the right to be mad when they yell at you? They bark because they know you. They remember you. I wish I could be remembered by them. It is a miracle to be cherished, to be shouted at by a good, drunk, crazy, homeless man in the middle of the street. You are special, someone not forgotten. Right. So that is the character Puro, speaking of a love that he has for the roots, right? You know, and I guess I could say a little bit about that, and then we could open it up for questions. Just something about that scene, you know. And I've said, I'll always get the question asked to me, you know, how much of this is real and how much of it is make believe. All of it is real, and all of it is make believe. No. None of it is true, yet all of it is true. That is Pura Neta right there. That is the paradox of Pura Neta. And why? Because, yes, I went through experiences like that, right? You know, I'll just share with you all, as a young adolescent, having ventured out on the street since I was about 10 years old, right? By the time I'm 15, 16 years old, I'm drinking with homeless men on the streets. The Mission District, you know, down at Union Square, down at all those places, right? And I remember a good homie that we would drink up together on 30th Street. Before there was a Walgreens there was a fruit market, a vegetable market stand right there, right? We would drink up on the stairs right there, you know, cheap wine stuff. And so we were cool with each other, man, you know. And you know, I left. I went to the Marine Corps and I came back and he did not remember me. And then I tried to talk to him, you know, and then I realized, oh, something's happened, man. We've changed, man. And he did not remember me. And then a friend of mine, she confided to me one time that she was frightened by the homeless people, you know, that are around the Tenderloin area, etc. You know, I understand that, totally understand that, right? You know, safety issues, etc. Then I also felt, wow, you know, and this inspired that poem right there, that or musing by Toto, because I thought to myself, wow, if they're yelling at you, it's because like they know you, man. You know, I wish Mike, that was the homeless homie's name. You know, I wish he would have remembered me, man. You know, and I was like, you know, he can't. He frustrated at his own face, you know, right? And yeah, I just wanted to share a little bit about that background of that story. But thank you all for listening and allowing me to share a bit about this. I can keep talking, but I want to give it up to you all. I want to hear what questions you all have, you know, about anything, you know, about the book, about the creative writing process, about whatever you would want to discuss, themes that are in the book, please.
All right. Hey, Ben, thank you so much. Appreciate that. Yeah, let's give Ben a round of applause now. However way you want to, you can do it with your mic off, or you can do the digital version. Thank you so much. Let's go ahead and take some questions. I do want to remind people that since this is being recorded, if you ask a question with your mic off, you'll be in the recording, right? So I just want you to be aware of that, because we will make these available to some of the creative writing classes. And so we just need to make sure it's okay with you if you're in one of those videos, okay? And the only way that you would be in the video is if you ask a question and the camera kind of zooms in on you, all right? And then Ben, I just want to say one other thing. If there seems to be time, and maybe you can like sneak us another excerpt from your book, that'd be great.
Yeah.
But let's go ahead and turn to our audience here. And you may, probably the best thing is to use, raise one of these digital hands here. I can't always see everybody at once. They're coming. People are thinking right now.
Okay.
Stephen Mayers. Oh, Stephen Mayers, Stephen Mayers raised his hand. Okay. All right, Stephen, you want to go ahead?
Sure. So Ben, thank you so much for this. This is an amazingly beautiful book. I got mine in the mail 2 weeks ago, and I've been so busy reading books for classes that I've only been like flipping through it and reading like little bits of poems and stuff like that, which is actually a pretty cool way to approach the book. You know what I mean? Like, because I think like, you know, I can tell like with this kind of a book, I mean, ultimately I want to read it from cover to cover and experience the narrative, but so far I've been just getting bits of poems. And one thing I noticed is that some of the poems are spoken by the characters, and then some of the poems are spoken by the narrator, right? So the narrator just slips right into poetry, right? And so I think that's super interesting and beautiful. And so how did the book start in terms of like when you finished your last novel? Did you think to yourself like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna do a sequel. This is gonna be, you know, and then you had it like in the back of your mind, or did you like not think about it for a while? And then once it started, how did it start flowing? Like in terms of this this style that you've created?
Thank you for that great question. And you know what? I do want to highlight a little bit about what Stephen stated here, in that is one way that you can engage with this book. You don't have to read it from beginning to end, right? You know, I read books. I'm reading books all the time, right? You know, perhaps some of you are interested in Daniil Karms, who was a Russian author, early 20th century, right? And a lot of his stuff is just musing, short pieces, right? You know, I got Camus' notebooks, right? This is my second volume of his notebooks that I'm reading. You know, I just flip through pages and I get so much out of it, right? So, no, for example, I don't feel like I could do that with authors such as, you know, like Dostoevsky or Faulkner, you know what I mean? Because it's a very linear narrative and you may be lost. I do believe with this book, you can do that. You could just flip up to page 103. I think you'll just find hopefully something that you could connect to here, right? So if you buy the book, just please do not be concerned or anxious about having to follow the linear narrative, right? So thank you for stating that, Stephen. Now, how did I come up with this book? Okay, right now, I'm a writer, so I'm supposed to write, and so I've been writing now for 25 years. And you know, some of you know this, some of you may not know this, but I wake up every day. You know, actually today it was pretty early, at about 4 o'clock in the morning, and every day I write. I write every day. You know, so I was writing all the time. All of these years I've been writing. I write musings to myself. I write journal entries. I write poems. I've written short stories, novels, etc. Actually, I wrote another, like 2 novels, and I wrote a nonfiction book, kind of like an autobiography. Right? None of those would sell. I couldn't get anyone to bite on them, man. But it's okay. I did not mind. I just kept going with my work as a writer. And I guess that's really, I want to say that, I guess to my colleagues, because I see a lot of my colleagues, that's really something that I want to promote to those of you who are aspiring writers, who are writers right now, newer writers, right? Is you just got to do it, man. And I would not feel the same about my life. I would not feel the same about my spirit if I did not have that writing time to myself, and you know, to at least it's an imagine. So it's a writing to myself. Whatever I'm writing, I write to myself. I'm also imagining some kind of stranger, a perfect stranger that will connect with the book, right? You know, right? So I wasn't able to connect the other books with anyone, right? So one night back in January 2018, so it's almost been 2 years now, it was a night of festivities. You know, I had been drinking a couple of beers, and you know, I was just talking about writing, probably reading poetry. Sometimes I'll just, you know, just read poetry, right? And you know, I'll read poetry on the streets. I'll read poetry in bars. You know, I'll read poetry to perfect strangers. It does not matter, you know, right? And so one night, I thought to myself, you know, wow, you know, I got this poetry, I got these books, I got this nonfiction stuff, because I have a lot of nonfiction writing too. My blog, I've got, you know, like 140 postings on there, right? You know, over 10 years time. I thought to myself, maybe there's a way that I could kind of like just have a big jambalaya, right, of all of this together, right? And I thought to myself, that would be kind of an interesting writing experience. See, making it kind of coherent, and of course, having to add a new story. And I thought to myself, you know, a new story would be what happens at the end of Mario Bushido cartoon gets kicked out. It's 1992. What happens 20 years later? What if he comes back 20 years later? I thought that would be something, I think, very interesting, right? To find out what happened to cartoon, to find out what happened to the Barrio, to find out what happened to the other characters in Barrio Bushido, right? And also another rationale for making it 20 years later, from 1992 to 2014, 2012, and then eventually Pura Neta goes to 2014, so it's a 2-year time span here, right? Because that is a very intense period that I personally experienced in the Mission District, right? My brother passed away in the year 2008. So lots of gang history and tradition going on there. But by that time too, all of the OG homeboys and homegirls have moved on. They can no longer live there in the Mission, right? And the Mission is being transformed. Big movements start, being pushed. Our mission, no eviction, which, if you don't know, recently shut down luxury condominiums that were supposed to be built on 16th and Mission, right? It was like a 4 or 5 year long battle for that, right? And then also during that particular time in 2012, actually since about 2010 to 2014, I personally had, just been out on the streets and was just involved with all kinds of stuff, right? Mission Peace Collaborative, that was a big one, right? I was involved with, right, promoting education in the Mission, right? Creativity, writing, going to and doing presentations about Barrio Bushido and doing what I write about in Pura Neta, which what I thought was amor action. And one of the people who joined me on this journey was he was like my brother, was Alex Nieto. He was a City College of San Francisco student. Right? He had never been in my class. I just knew him from the streets. But he loved City College. I remember we did go on some movements together to defend City College, right? This is when that the whole accreditation thing was happening. You all remember that, right? And I thought, I could write about that experience, right? And of course, fictionalize it and transform it. Because, as I said at the beginning of this discussion right now, this is beyond the language that I'm conveying to you. Maybe you could feel it, the pitch in my voice or the mannerisms of my hands, the look in my face, right? I was personally connected to a lot of these things that were happening from the years 2012 to 2014. And the novel ends in the year 2014 because that is the year that Alex Nieto was killed. In the book, he's fictionalized, so it's not a total complete rendition of who he is, right? But it ends with that horrible true story, right? Yet it's a true story, yet it's fictionalized because no one who can know what happened during the last 20 minutes of Alex Nieto's life, right? And with all respect and all love, I'm trying to go into my brother's mind in that last chapter, which is about, I think, about 14 or 15 pages. I'm going into his last 20 minutes of life, right? And so, yeah, it's jambalaya of all of these different things, and that's how I came up with the plot. And then I spent a year and a half, right, not only making it a linear story, but then plugging in poems that I've written in the past that may be relevant, that may be able to be connected to how a character is thinking, right? And then making it coherent as best as possible, making it a smooth transition between the poetry and the prose, right?
That's beautiful. Thank you for that whole story, Ben. So it's kind of like you have you sort of poured the free flowing thoughts into the method, in a sense, right? And into the narrative. Yes. That's great. That's an excellent story. Thank you. And I look forward to reading this whole book, including the last chapter. Wow.
Thank you, Stephen. I can always ask a question, but I'd like to hear from some students or faculty or anyone else in the audience. And I see Andrea there. Andrea, let's hear from you.
Yeah, I tried to do the raise hand icon. Did it not work?
Oh, I did, maybe I missed it, but I didn't notice it.
Okay, but anyway, I'll just ask it. Hi.
Hello, Andrea.
Hey, Ben. Thank you. I wanted to say make a comment, and then I wanted to ask you a question.
Okay.
The comment that I want to make is, it seems like the story very cinematic to me. I think it's like, it would be a great movie. And that's my comment. But my question is about what you were just talking about in response to Stephen's question. How do you know when you're trying something experimental like that, how do you know that that it makes sense to the reader, or that the reader is going to be able to follow it? Or do you have like people that you work with that read for you? Or can you say something a little bit about the process of putting it together? Like, do you work with an editor, or how do you know that it's flowing in a way that's not just clear to you, but that the reader's going to get it?
So for this particular project, I had 3 different readers that questioned, and that really had an impact on the logic of the book, right? On making it a linear story, right? So Monica Zarazua, Ricardo Tavares, and I'm sorry, but Tony Robles read it as well, right? They all helped me out in different ways. And also, I would share it. I would share it with certain people, and would get inspired to make sure that I'm connecting as best as possible to make it a logical story. However, at the same time, and I must admit this, that because it is an experimental form, I don't expect to spoon feed everybody, right? Because it's just, it will lose some of its force if I try to make it like an essay, right? Where I'm giving you every clear explanation for everything, right? So I have to have part of the writing process, right? And especially for this book is, I have to have faith, right? To a certain extent, that a person is going to see or feel my goodwill, right? That I'm trying to make it logical for a person, even though, as I said, I know that it could be very disorienting to read standard prose and then whoa, and a lot of my own students are like, I don't like poetry, right? In 1B, right? I've never written about poetry. I don't like poetry, and then all of a sudden they got to get into poetry, right? So I've made the poetry, I'm trying to make it straightforward, but not overly simplistic either, right? Because a reader should have to work. Because I believe if a reader has to work, they get a reward out of their work, right? And something about this book is, look, I wrote it with a lot of love. I hope that shines through, right? It has helped me. I'll tell you what, this book has helped me in my own life. Of course, it helped me better understand myself, understand my past, and feel like I know where I'm going in my future. So in that respect, it's accomplished its task for me personally. Everything else is icing on the cake. I would hope that someone can get this and be able to enrich themselves, right? And maybe, for Chicano, Latinos, that they'd be able to see this and maybe, build on their identity of what it means to be, especially if you're from an urban barrio, right? And especially from a vida loca, crazy life kind of background. I would hope that, many people, not just them, but many people will get the inside jokes, because a lot of this is, I hope I haven't been too serious during this discussion, but a lot of this is comedy as well, right? There's drama, but there's also comedy and love, and the absurdity of life, right? And there's beauty even in death, right? And I hope that, for example, the character Alex Neta showcases that beauty, right? So I hope that's answered. I know I've kind of gone to a lot of different places with that, but thank you for asking that, Andrea. All right, please.
All right. Other questions? I haven't heard from a whole lot of students here, so if you guys want to jump in here, don't be shy. If I don't hear one soon, I'll ask one. Okay, since I don't see anything, I'm gonna go ahead and ask a question.
Okay.
And then Ben, I've always been just amazed by your life, and especially, the whole trajectory of, being that kid on the street at, 15 or 16, drinking. And I'm just curious, and I just think it'd be a good thing for students to hear, to know how you persevered, how you made your way into City College, what it felt like to be at City College, and what turned you on? Like, what was your fire? What got you going?
Oh, thank you so much for this question, right? And yeah, this one, of course, is for you all students out there. Please check out my blog. You could learn more about my own personal story, but I was just like you all, right? I had basically dropped out by about the 7th grade. I went to San Francisco Unified School District. I got kicked out of many of my schools, or I remember in middle school, they just, without even the credits to graduate. I had just gotten out of juvenile hall doing a 3-month commitment, and they were like, you know what, we don't want you here anymore. We're just gonna promote you to high school, man. And I remember just being out on the streets, being alienated from education, right? And I did feel like I was getting an education. I was getting an education of a lot of intensity, right? Of life-death situation. I joined the Marine Corps. That did give me some discipline. And about my creative writing, and I've stated this before in other discussions and lectures, I got into creative writing by letter writing, right? So when I was in the war, it was 9 months. We were the first troops in Saudi Arabia, and we were living in the middle of the desert, and you know what I mean? And so it would be such a beautiful blessing to be able to get a letter, right? And, I had just left like that. We had done jungle training in Panama. And then the day we get back, they're like, you guys are ready to go because you guys have been training. So we're shipping you off. And, then we're in the middle of the desert. And I hadn't said hello to goodbye to anybody, and I'm thinking to myself, damn, I want to get a letter. But how can I get a letter from somebody? My letters better be good, because I'm competing with the movies. I'm competing with life out on the streets, and all of these other things. So I better learn how to write so that I could get some love, right? So that's my real introduction to creative writing, is letter writing, to be able to get a letter written back to me, right? And, also very important, I supplemented, my imagination by reading. There is no other tool that will help you with your writing style like reading, right? You can watch lectures, etc., right? But I bet most of you don't see a transcription of words, right, while I'm speaking right now, right? So reading, I would argue, helps you steal style, right? And that's what I'm a thief. I steal style. There's no way that I can get around it. The more I read, the more style I steal. And it's a jambalaya of styles that is created in Boxiera, the writer, right? When I got out of the Marine Corps, I was alienated. I will just tell you, I was suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. I was a machine gunner in the grunts, and I was drinking, but I had a GI Bill. And at that time, it was only $300 a month, right? For me, that was like a lot of money, because I was like, I could go and buy beers with this money, right? My first semester at City College, I didn't even sign up. My brother, who had gotten out of prison, signed me up for classes. He had gotten out maybe a year before I did, and he had fought fires for part of his prison sentence. And just know that that's who actually fights fires in California. It's not, it's firemen, but it's the California Department of Corrections firefighters, right? And he had fought fires, and he went and learned that at City College he could go get his EMT license, go through the fire academy, etc. And he did all that. And then when I got out, and I just want to be crazy, so he's like, "Hey man, you need to go to school. I'm going to sign you up for classes." He signed me up for classes. My first semester, I hardly even went to classes. I was too traumatized to sit in a classroom. I would go to school, but I would go up to the library. And at that time, it was in Cloud Hall. I would go up to Cloud Hall and I would hide and read books in between the stacks in Cloud Hall. I would read about boxing. I would read about gangsters. I would read about the Marines. I would read about things that were kind of interesting to me, right? And I don't know how I survived that first semester, but I guess I had some kind of common sense. And my letter writing helped me write essays. I guess because of the experiences that I had, I wrote about things that were substantive, right? And so that was enough to have me, pass those classes. And then in the summer and the next fall, I got really invested in education. I took Lauren Bell and Louise Nayer for my first creative writing classes. Wow. And I just kept writing from there, man. And you have to have kind of a faith in yourself that it means something. And I will say this, one of the best things about writing for me is that I believe I become a more interesting, introspective person, right? And so my creative writing is added to my persona of who I am in real life, right? So I would not be who I am without all of the writing. And I would not have been able to accomplish all the things that I have. I've done things for the community. I've done things over at City College. This is my 19th year teaching at City. And, it's because of my writing that I'm able to, I hopefully listen, because when you write, you got to shut up, listen to yourself, right? So that's really important, right? So for those of you who are new writers, really, faith is extremely important, and also being able to listen to yourself and not trying to bully yourself around, right? Allowing yourself to just open up in your writing, be vulnerable to yourself in your own writing, right? I don't know if I answered all of the stuff. I could keep going, but
that's a lot of it. Well, I see that we have a student with her hand raised, so I want to go ahead and turn to that. This is Allison Wu, who is the poetry editor of Pura magazine this semester. And she, along with the other editors and staff members, have been absolutely amazing as we're putting a magazine together online. It's not been easy, but these guys have persevered. So Allison, it's up to you.
Hi. Thank you so much for reading an excerpt from your book. It's so cool to hear about it, and I feel really honored. I'm also from San Francisco, from Outer Mission, so it's super cool to hear about you writing about it. I have two questions for you. The first one is, who are some of your writing inspirations? And my second one is, as a native, how do you still love San Francisco when it's changed so much? And sometimes it's you kind of hate it. I just kind of want to hear your thoughts on that.
All right. Okay. So first of all, thank you, Allison, for joining us and for asking these very profound questions. Now, so inspirations. I mean, I could just go on all day. I guess I should talk about maybe some of the recent writers that I've been reading. Oh man, she has really inspired a lot from me. She was a well-known Cuban poet, but after the revolution, she stopped writing, right? It's almost like a protest, and also in order for her to stay in Cuba, right? Her name is Dulce Maria Loinas. So I've been reading her now for maybe about 3 or 4 years, right? Spanish poet. Oh, he is a trip. His last name is Panero. Panero. Oh man, he was like literally he was in an insane asylum. So but he ended up gaining an international audience, right? And then recently, oh man, this guy has tripped me out. I read one of his books, so I bought one of this is a new one that I'm getting into. But he was an avant-garde Soviet writer from Russia, early 20th century, Daniil Karms, right? And those are some of my recent inspirations. I got books all over the place. I got a lot of nonfiction stuff too. You know, Yuval Harari, a lot of the stuff that he's written about regarding technology. So that stuff has been thought-provoking to me as well, right? Now, as far as loving San Francisco, it's puro San Fran, Holmes, always and always until the day I die, all amor. And you know what? Yes, I understand exactly what you're saying about having that very tense relationship with the city I grew up in, right? But the root and the spirit still survives all the time. I see it all the time, right? You know, so for example, I'll give you some things right here that have inspired me, and perhaps that you know of. It's just the Amor for Alex Nieto movement. Oh, that was such a beautiful international movement, really, but rooted here in San Francisco, rooted in the Mission District, right? And you saw people, so Allison, you saw people that don't even live in the Mission anymore, or they don't even live in San Francisco. But for that action, it came to San Francisco, right? You know, and then something that I'm really a part of right now is the lowrider movement. You know, I've been a lowrider for 20 years, and we just had a big event. You know, it was a masked up social distance event, but it was a toy drive. It just happened this past Saturday. You know what I mean, right? And you get people from all over congregating, right? And you feel that spirit, that rooted spirit that still remains in San Francisco. And another way that I keep the spirit of San Francisco going is I go out there and I'm giving amor to the gente. I still am out on the streets. I'll go cruise, I'll go post up somewhere, 24th Street, and I'll talk with people. Of course, it's a lot more difficult now because of COVID, right? But the root and the spirit is still there. And I would urge you, Allison, to keep giving that spirit out. And for me, what's that spirit? The spirit of San Francisco is that we are the epitome. We're named after St. Francis, man. St. Francis loved the animals, man. St. Francis sacrificed himself. He could talk with the animals. How much more rooted in nature can you be? And in fact, that's one of the themes that comes up in Pura Neta is there is no solution, Allison. There is no solution to what we're in right now. The best we can hope for, this is a character Lobo speaking, but I'll speak some of his ideas. The best we can hope for is getting back to our natural roots. And what are our natural roots? Treating people like human beings. And I didn't even read that much from the book, right? But I hope that excerpt that I wrote about regarding the homeless person, right? So looking at that person and not vilifying that person, not vilifying African Americans or Chicanos, right? And realizing that they're human beings, man, and that they have special gifts, right? And that's something that, I think has been lost because you've got technology that's come in and is telling us in San Francisco, we are your new God. We are your savior. And that's the same tactic that they used to the Indians, right? Jesus Christ, the missions. We are God is your savior. Give us your land. We're stealing from you. Same concept, new savior is technology, right? So in one way, we got to fight back against technology by being loving human beings to each other, right? And so, yeah, I hope that answers. And so maybe you feel some of my frustration too, Allison. But that's the way that I deal with it. And I'm not trying to. I'm fighting the good fight, but I know that there is no solution. I got this tattooed on the back arms. It says "Vida Loca." Vida Loca means crazy life. And I tattooed that when I was, I think, like 19 years old, because that was my wisdom. I got to admit, that's still what I believe right now. This does not make any sense. What is this? This is a crazy place. We're not even in front of each other in real life right now, man. And so I keep that as kind of a root, and that helps me. That comforts me. And that helps me too see through the bullshit that people are trying to preach about, like being able to solve all our existential problems, because that's impossible. It's impossible. Don't want to philosophize too much. This has been a great reading. Thank you all so much. Thank you. Please.
Ben, we do have one more question here.
Sure, yeah.
We can. Mattia Edwards is one of our managing editors at Forum, and she's been working really, really hard on Forum, so I'm happy to see her here tonight. And Mattia, the camera's on you. Let's go ahead and unmute.
Okay. Hi, thank you for sharing your excerpt with us. Excuse me. I'm just wondering, as I know that you said you have some fiction and nonfiction, and sometimes the lines are blurred. I'm not sure if this would correlate to it, but what advice would you give to people that want to write something about maybe, and it won't make a community look in the best light, if that makes sense?
Sure, understand, yes. You know what? It's your duty as a writer to be as honest as you can be, right? And so this is my own feeling about creative writing. Creative writing is not supposed to be propaganda. You can read an essay or go watch a journalistic piece to read propaganda, right? So you've got to be authentic about what you believe, because your readers will be able to feel the bullshit, right? And so my advice to you is, if you want to write about a community and critique a community, then also understand this. Question yourself as a human being, where is that critique coming from, right? And I say that because I've been asked to write a whole bunch of stuff. I've written newspaper articles, etc. And some people may think it's somewhat cliche, but I constantly use the word amor. And that is actually what I believe. Even my supposed enemies, okay, all right? Even people that, that have had funk with me, because I've had to go start a whole bunch of shit. I put myself out on the line numerous times, right? And I have not had the support from certain groups, Maddie. So what I would say is even the groups that I know may not think of, well, they may respect me to a certain extent, but I respect them. I respect them as human beings, right? So if I'm gonna be critiquing someone, I'm gonna call you out on bullshit, but I'm not gonna call you the devil. You know what I mean? I'm just not gonna do that, right? I'm not gonna dehumanize you to the point where I lose my own humanity, right? So I would advise you, be critical, be authentic, question yourself, be honest, search to find out all that you can about the situation, and so that you feel confident. So I guess all of the things that I'm saying right now, hopefully to help you build confidence so that whatever you write, you're okay with it, right? And I've had to write those pieces before. One piece in particular that I will guide you to is on my blog, right? It was viewed like 10,000 times. It is called A Letter to Privileged People. A Letter to Privileged People. I wrote it back in 2016, right? And so in that piece, I'm being critical of some communities, right? And I'm angry. I'm very angry, you know, and I'm upset. I'm seeing through the farce of a whole bunch of different stuff. But at the same time, I'm trying to offer people like there is something you can do. And you know what I believe? You can fight. You can fight, right? You know, and something that I remember that I wrote in that piece was you can fight, and you may have to fight your brother, your sister, or your privileged community. You can't stay silent about certain things, right? So that's a piece that kind of reminds me or provokes me to think about what you asked about. So hopefully that can help in some way.
Right.
It does. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben, for reading for us. Hey, folks, let's give it up. You can unmute if you like. You can put up little hearts or hands. Let's show Ben our appreciation. It's been a wonderful, wonderful night.
Well, thank you all, and hopefully we will be seeing each other actually in physical form soon, right? Maybe in fall of 2021. We'll be able to embrace again, huh?
I think so, yes.
All right.
Long overdue.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you all for coming. It's good to see all of you.
Okay.
Bye.
Take care. Thanks again, Ben. That was fantastic.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you, John, for organizing.
That was great.